You are listening to the Beyond the High Road podcast with Shelby Milford, episode number 94. Stay tuned. Hello, folks. How are we doing today? Episode 94. I got some stuff. I have a full episode in my brain right here. I just came off of a very eventful weekend. If you guys are listening to me like real time, the week that this is being released, or even in the month or so after it is released, there's a lot that kind of happened this weekend in the world, right? As far as the current events and the attempted assassination and all the things. I'm not going to get into a political conversation here, but that, and then there was poor Richard Simmons, God rest his soul. Where the world is down one ray of sunshine. He was a special person. But anyway, and a couple others too, as far as that's concerned, passed away. I won't go into all that stuff because we are a podcast about alienation and how we heal from it. Most people, that is not a word that you usually hear giggle after. Anyway, it's miraculous that I can today have a giggle after that word. There was a time, and there's nothing funny about alienation, just the way that I said it. So it was an eventful weekend for me too. But we'll get into in just a second. First of all, I wanted to do announcements. Friday, Facebook Live, same thing, noon Eastern time. Okay, so it's still going on, still doing it. It is recurring in the private Facebook group. You just gotta join. Listen, I said it, I might have edited it out in my last episode or one of the little more recent episodes. If you have applied, what's the word I'm trying to look for? If you tried to come into the Facebook, the private group, and for one reason or another, you weren't accepted, make sure that you are responding to the questions that I pose in the beginning, like when you're going to join the group. Okay, those questions are there for a reason. Not because I do anything with the information. I really just give them a once over, but I need to vet you because I want to make sure that the parents that I have in there and that the community, the atmosphere, the environment for you guys is one of a supporting, loving kind, and that everybody there is an alienated parent who's on their way to healing, is in the process of healing themselves and their lives and possible reconnection with their children. Okay. I've had, I wasn't so diligent in the beginning, but that didn't serve us well. So now I've learned to be very diligent with it. So if you do want to join and for whatever reason you haven't, answer the questions. Okay. Just respond to the questions. It doesn't have to be a book. Doesn't even have to be a paragraph if you don't want. One or two sentences a piece. So there's that. And even if you want to put a note like, hey, I, tried before and for whatever reason I didn't get accepted. Whatever. I don't care. Just let me know that you're a human and you're not some scammer trying to sell us PI services. Whatever. Okay. Thanks. Okay. And another thing is that we got some new reviews. I say we, and because I want to include you guys, just like I said last week or the week before, whenever I said it, is because there wouldn't be this show without y'all. So I do say we. Having said that, I won't necessarily include you in the we when I tell you that we got a bad review that I am absolutely going to address because I think I should, because I think y'all deserve it. We deserve it. Anyway, so the first one is not the bad review. Is taking my life back. And this is from SV Berger. This is actually one of my clients. And she says, Shelby has been my coach since December of 2023. While I will be the first to admit that I'd rather not put the work in, she never lets me quit. I'm an alienated mom of 3 beautiful girls. They're adults now, but I'm almost 6 years into my alienation. And she has provided for me the foundation I need to become the very best that I can be. Thank you, Shelby. So that was from Sam. Thank you, Sam. I really appreciate that. I really, I do. Thank you. And then I know who this one is too. She's not a client, but she comes to the Facebook group all the time. HR Saves Lives. I won't say your name, even though I know, I know. It said, I wrote a very long, thoughtful response. Please let me know if you didn't receive my last review. Just add to my previous reviews. I just want to ensure that you're receiving my love and support you so deserve. You're so sweet. I did not. In fact, your other reviews went away. HR Saves Lives. Your other reviews just went away. I'm not sure what happened, but that's the one that's there right now. And still, I love it. So thank you. Then there was one that says disappointed. I got 1 star. I'm going to read it. I was excited to hear someone speak on parental alienation. I am, however, severely disappointed that she would say that alienation is worse than losing a child. I've had several deep losses, and there is no hope of reconciliation in these relationships. You would think someone who lost her brother would understand the profound difference and respect it more. It was insulting. Unfollowing. Well, JP Scrugg, I truly am sorry that you feel this way. I am too also sorry if what I said wasn't clear. What I'm reading here, how I'm understanding this, is I don't believe that I have ever said that a death is less or that alienation is worse than a death. I do, however, recall, and I this morning went back and re-listened to the part when I was reading those. This review would have made sense if you were talking about the episode 2 episodes ago, where I was reading my journals from years ago. And I mentioned that people compare alienation to that of a death. And that I said it was kind of like a death, except for the fact that, and this is where maybe you were talking about, except for the fact that with a death, there's an opportunity for closure. And if that seemed insensitive to you, I am truly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very sorry. This person has unfollowed, so I doubt that they'll ever even hear what I'm saying. But that also goes out to all of you too, listening. Here's the thing, and this is why I wanted to address this one, considering the subject matter that I am confronting here in this whole show, almost 100 episodes. There are bound to be people that I don't rub the right way. That actually sounded wrong, you know what I'm saying? But is outspoken and honest, open as I am with you guys, there are bound to be times where you don't agree with what I say. And that is okay. In fact, I feel like it's inevitable. I feel like if you agreed with every single thing I said or did or thought, then we might have, well, either come live with me or we might have a problem. There's a reason why we are all different. And I think that's what makes the world go around. You know, that's what makes life interesting. And I really, truly, what I really would have appreciated from this person is if they would have sent me an email, if they would have come to me and opened up a conversation. Unfortunately, with Apple reviews, when somebody writes a review, it's a review and it's a one-way exchange. So I really don't have the opportunity to, and maybe this person didn't want that, right? Usually the reason why people write scathing reviews and unfollow is because they want it and be done with it. And that's okay. You know, I've definitely been there. For the most part, I don't like to write scathing reviews, especially these days. But there was definitely a time, not so long ago and during my healing, where I was angry pockets that I was in, entitled. I'm not saying that this person is pockets. I was talking about me and me alone. Pockets that I was in where I felt like I was owed more from people, from the world, because I had been done wrong. I was wronged. I had been through such a hard life. And so I would get angry at anybody I thought that was crossing a line or or doing wrong or something, anything that I didn't agree with. And I would say it, and I would do it in reviews like this. Again, I'm speaking about me, and I'm not accusing this person of being that right now. So please just understand that I was just relating. I get it. I understand if you're in a place where you thought that writing a review this way on the show's podcast site was a good idea. That's okay, But I also really, really welcome if any of you ever have some sort of beef, take offense to something I say. You are more than welcome. Please. I do say that I do take a little while to get back to email, but please email me. Okay. I would love to open up a conversation about it. We're all going through something. And so this person, I have love for them. I understand that I do get from what they wrote that they are going through something and they feel hurt. They feel hurt by what they think that I said, right? I don't believe I said that. If I did, I never meant it. Maybe it was in a different episode, and that's not how I meant it at all. In fact, what I truly believe, I really got to get to the episode, but maybe there was a time, I will say this, maybe there was a time, and maybe he or she read that from when I was reading the journals, that I did think that alienation was worse than a death. I truly believe that I didn't say that in these episodes, but maybe I did think that, because when you're going through something so fucking challenging as alienation, and you desperately want to love the child that is still on this earth and not in your life, and you don't understand why, and you're looking for answers, of course I felt that way. That this has got to be worse than a death, because they're still here. I can see them. It's torture. Do you know what I'm saying? So I absolutely guaranteed, I'm not going to lie about that. There are probably many times, many periods of times where I did think thoughts like that. Now, again, I will repeat, I will maintain that I don't believe that I've ever said that. Like, today I believe that alienation is absolutely positively worse than a death. It's worse than blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's like that, because I think everybody's walk is their own. I do think that it's a popular consensus that this is the hardest thing a parent can go through. Now, are we biased? Am I biased? Maybe. Possibly, probably, right? Because we're going through something. We're going through it. And that is my right to go through it. That is your right. It is this person that wrote the scathing reviews right to go through it. It's fine. We all are going to go through different phases of this, right? So my whole point of going through all of that is to say that the things that I share with you on these episodes, I know that what I say isn't concrete and it isn't every parent's experience. It's not. It is my experience. It is my journey through healing. And I share it with you in hopes to save y'all years off your healing journey, if that's what you want. I share with you my insights from my brain, my feelings, my experiences, in an effort to hopefully help you through yours. That's the purpose of this. I provide this as a free resource for you guys so that you can heal and feel not alone. That was the first ever desire I had whenever I was going through this. I shared with you guys a long time ago. If you've been following the show since the beginning, that's what when I was in my therapist's office and I found out that there was a name for this horrible situation that we're going through as parents, I was like, when I get through this, I need to somehow help other parents to feel like they're not as alone as I have felt. This road has been long and lonely and scary, and shameful. And I don't want anybody else to ever go through that. Now, I can't control the fact that y'all are going through it, but I can certainly offer my experience, strength, and hope. And that's what these episodes are for. And so what I would urge you to do is take what you like and leave the rest, please. I'm human. I'm fallible. Okay. And so I know that the majority of you, if you're keep coming back, you understand that. And I just want to remind you too. Of course I'm going to make mistakes. I am just another parent, going through the motions and getting by. Another parent who misses her child just as much as y'all do. Okay? I'm bound to make mistakes, but I sure do appreciate and love you guys for showing up each week and listening and for your loyalty. And so for those of you who do appreciate it, I appreciate you too. And I even appreciate the ones of you who don't appreciate it. It's okay. There was probably a time in my own healing where if somebody like me came on, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated them all the time. In fact, I know I've shared with you guys before that my mentor and then later coach and teacher and all the things, there was a time period where I boycotted her. She said something that I didn't like, and I was easily offended at that point. I was like, fuck you, unfollow. And I didn't turn her back on probably for at least 6 months. Couldn't even, I was so mad at her. Oh, how dare she say something like that? And then something made me go back, and I realized that was actually the most powerful work I ever did was on the thing that I was offended about. Now, again, not saying that this person's going to be like that at all. In fact, I'm not banking on that. But it is funny how sometimes we're just not ready to receive certain things. And that was my case. Anyway, if I have ever offended you, I'm truly sorry. You know that everything I'm going to say is true, always coming from a deep, deep love and admiration for you too, that you are here and working on yourself in attempt to stop the cycle, for your kiddo. There is definitely an quote unquote easier choice, right? A choice with less work up front, right? Which is just not math, just pretend like it's not happening or him and haw. And that's the more comfortable, familiar choice. But, and that many people choose, but your choice is a brave one. So, anyway, thank you for tuning in every week and for supporting me in that way, supporting the show, supporting us, supporting like all of us as alienated parents and getting the word out there. So, all right. That was a very long introduction. Let's move it along, y'all. So, today we are going to talk about, I got something on my shirt. I'm a hot mess today. So I was telling you about that this weekend was an eventful one, but I did not explain what has been happening. It's nothing huge, but my darling mother came into town. And I knew at this time she didn't just show up. She didn't surprise me. She was supposed to stay until today. Actually, today's Tuesday. And she did not. She left early. She left on Sunday afternoon. We were headed to a movie, and within a blink of an eye, she was up and she was out of here. And I tell you this because I have a lesson, some insights, and a theory about us as alienated parents and what maybe possibly are common traits and why it is that we were susceptible to the alienation and to entering into a relationship with a person who would alienate our children from us. So that is the premise for today's episode. This is one of the most popular questions that I get from you guys and from my own clients. I just got it the other day from one of my dads who said, I wonder if there's a common trait among parents who have been alienated. And I wrote back, many. He had a very funny response after that. But anyway, I wrote many because this whole time, and even a couple episodes, I believe I was saying that I think I sprinkled in it throughout that we wouldn't have ever chosen a kind of person that would alienate our own children from us had we not had earlier trauma. Now, if that isn't true for you, then please understand that I am not in any way accusing you or pretending to know your journey, okay? But from my experience and those many, many parents that I have spoken to in the past 5-6 years, I believe my theory stands true, okay? I am just a coach, master certified coach who specializes in grief and post-traumatic growth. So I do not have the doctorate. This is not based on anything but maybe a Shelbyism, just my humble opinion. Before I give you the full theory, let me give you some context. If you would have asked me, even up until probably 5 years ago, something like that, what my childhood was like, And even actually, I think I shared with you maybe a year, like when I first started the show, like back in the Bill of Rights. I think I even said it then. I don't know. I'd have to go back to it. But I think that I said that I had a normal childhood. I was provided for, things were fine in my childhood, right? And here I sit, right? So things are fine. We all have experienced some sort of trauma growing up, I believe. But I would have told you for years and years and years that, oh yeah, my childhood was great. What are you talking about? My parents were fine. They were healthy. They were great. Everything was fine. Sure. Fantastic. And I have clients to this day. You might know who you are. Maybe you don't though, because there are certain attachment styles. There's one attachment style, an avoidant attachment. You may not know, and you may be truly convinced that you did have a perfect childhood, in which case that is completely fine. But if you want to stop the cycle, right, that has been continuing, and if you want to find some healing as it relates to the situation of alienation, how you got yourself here, how you can get yourself out, how you can feel better and take back your power and blah, 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 then this is why I'm providing you with this information today. Again, if it applies, great. Take what you like, leave the rest. Okay? All right. So back in the day, I would have told you that I had a normal childhood. Mom and dad were great. Mom was loving. She was fun. She took me on these great extravagant trips on the fly. She would just show up at my school and off we would go to Disney World or to wherever, to Burma one time. We went back to Thailand. She just showed up at my school. Off we went to Thailand for a 3-week-long vacation while my dad was wherever. I had so much fun with her, right? And so those memories were amazing. And that's what I kind of thought about where I thought about like how I was provided for and like that, I never went hungry. My mom was loving to me a lot of times, right? That's what I thought about. And because what we grow up with, what we're born into is normal for us as we grow up, we don't really have words for anything other than that. We're not brought up to question, in many families, not brought up to question authority and our conditions, our environment, right? Until we get into school and we see other kids, other families, other households and how they operate. And then for me, depending on where I lived in Southeast Asia, and then we hopped around a lot. So my life was a bit chaotic anyway, geographically, although I loved that part. Wherever I was, I did notice that households were run much differently than they were in my house. Didn't have the words for why, it just felt different. I knew that for my house, I couldn't just bring kids home, friends home. I had to go home and kind of make sure things were chill, copacetic. And then maybe I could feel it out and talk a certain way in order to get my mom to say yes and have kids come. It just really depended. But my house felt different. I felt different. And I never really knew why. I blamed it on, I always just pointed the finger at, it must be because my brother was always in trouble. It must be because my dad and my brother fought a lot. My dad and my mom fought a lot. So that's why it was chaotic. And I don't think that there's one thing. And again, remember I was sharing with you guys before about like each time I was in the shower, I'd like want to look for the person that was responsible for why I was the way I was. That's not what I'm doing here. And I need to make that clear because my intention is for you guys to, if you notice any similarities, for you to use it to uncover your own truth, right? Not by sitting and wallowing in like in the trauma of your past by any means. In fact, that's what I would like you not to do. But knowledge is power, right? And when you're ready, if and when you're ready to be able to look back, see the consistencies in inconsistency, if that makes sense, then maybe you can make sense of your future and change the narrative going forward. Change your own patterns that you developed as a result of being in an environment that was unstable back when. Okay? So I'm not doing any of this, giving you guys any of this information to blame shift, none of that. Let's just use it knowledge, information is power. The more that you have, the more that you can do with. Now, after this weekend, after what happened with my incident here with my mom, I was angry, and I will not hide that I definitely still do have some resentment going on with my mom. And especially now, really confirming what my theory is that I'm getting ready to tell you, I will absolutely acknowledge that I still have some work to do in this area. So I'm not going to like go all the way in with you guys. I want to share with you coming from a healed place. And so that's the part that I'm going to share right now. So I believe that parents who've been alienated, that I'm curious to find out what the numbers are. How many targeted parents of alienation grew up with a BPD or NPD adjacent parent? They may not have had full-blown borderline, full-blown NPD. Many times it's more of a spectrum. If you have 5 or more, the DSM says, okay, then that's when it could be diagnosable, but there's a spectrum. We've already established that we wouldn't be where we are and that we wouldn't have chosen the people that we chose without there being some trauma. And I want to take it a step further and say that it might be because you had, like in my case, a BPD adjacent mother or father. Stay with me here if you feel like it's not you. And it's okay if it's not you. Like I said at the way beginning, you don't have to identify or agree with everything I say. Please don't. But if it sounds like it might be you, if it sounds a little intriguing, then hear me out. Okay. So I grew up and my mom could never really put a finger on what it was because she was very loving. She was very loving. She was very fun. She could be very fun. And there are different types of BPD. It can show up in different ways, and it can show up in different ways with the same person. So it could be different aspects of it, depending on different eras that go through different moods. Anyway, but she could be very fun. She could be very loving, very nurturing, very supportive. And then she could be the opposite of that. She could be very punitive, very punishing, shaming. She spoke very derogatory at times, judgmental. She would shut you out and give you the silent treatment. Big thing for her was that she was untrusting and would tell you that you were not worthy of being trusted, even as a little kid. So I was believed that I was untrustworthy, like from the get, like, oh, okay. So that gave me the idea that I was somewhat like, that I had something to hide, that I wasn't full, like complete. I didn't ever have the words for any of this. It wasn't always in like a verbal exchange. Many times it was, but a lot of times it was in like sighs and the way she would loudly, like laboriously sigh while I was doing something she disapproved of or speaking in a way that she didn't want to hear anymore. Like saying this actually kind of stirs it up in me right now. That's not what I'm trying to do for you, but I think it might be helpful if like what I'm even saying right now sounds anywhere near familiar for you or it's intriguing, that you go do just a little research. And I am going to give you a person that I've been watching some videos on in the last 48 hours. Dr. Kim Sage she's on YouTube. She's great on this particular topic. So it would make sense that as parents who chose somebody that would alienate our kids from us, and that we might have had to, depending on the dynamics of the relationship and how different those can be from one relationship to the next, from one moment to the next, it could be that what you were feeling most as a child somehow showed up later on once the alienation began. And even in the relationship, although it will rarely present the same when you're just first dating them. You know what I'm saying? So it's obviously you weren't like, oh, this is just like how my mom or dad used to be. So yay, this is fun. Never. It's different because it's a romantic relationship as opposed to a parental relationship. But the role that you played in it could have been similar. If you had to fawn with your mom, maybe you fawned with them. If you numbed around your parents and you had more of a avoidant, dismissive attachment style because your mom, if she was like over the top and you became avoidant, then you might have gone into freeze much of the time in your relationship with the narcissist or whoever is alienating your kids from you. All I'm saying is there might be congruencies, similarities. And I think it's worth considering anyway, because the healing that this weekend actually provided to me was pretty substantial, even in the severe disappointment. So what happened was she started doing her sighing and all of her things and disapproving, and she was very defensive. And I said that, like, not even in a angry or even annoyed way. I was like, oh, you're so defensive right now. I was kind of joking, and she blew up. And then she got her stuff and packed her stuff within a 2-minute period. I think she'd already decided she wanted to leave. And she was out the door, and I don't know, I guess she drove back down to Miami, which is like, whatever. I haven't heard from her since. Very like an impulsive, quick to act way. And so again, don't necessarily want to focus on what they do, what anybody else outside of us does, but how we respond to it. In the moment, I had a lot of anxiety when it happened. And I noticed the anxiety coming on the night before when we were watching a movie, and I noticed her wanting to control me and get annoyed with me because I wasn't watching it in the way she wanted me to watch the movie. I wasn't sitting in the way that she wanted me to sit, responding in the way that she wanted me to. I don't know. I noticed the pattern coming up, and I noticed the anxiety in me, and I was like, oh. And so I already started to feel walking on eggshells-ish, And I just think it's interesting, because then I started to ask myself, re-ask the question after my client had asked this question just a couple of days before, what is this? What are the similarities? And I always knew I believed it was earlier trauma for all of us. And the fact that we do sort of tend to fawn or freeze around the person who was alienating our children from us, even while in the relationship, or the repeated behaviors from when we were children, right? Whatever those were. Then after this weekend, I revisited that question, and I was like, I really wonder why. And I started to think about all of my clients, current clients, and some of my past clients. And I was like, just thinking back to conversations. And I was like, I think this could be a possibility. And I think, like I said, it's okay. I mean, yeah, today I'm mad at my mom. Like right now, I'm pretty pissed at the way she's choosing to behave and has chosen to behave, and how her behavior during my growing up has really affected all of my choices, informed all of my choices growing up until now, right? Because now that I know and I'm able to acknowledge what was happening, she doesn't have any more power over me. And I don't mean that in a righteous, like, shitty way. I just mean, no, now I have responsibility of myself. And that is the best news ever. Because now, when I'm outside of blaming and I'm just acknowledging, then I hold all of the control of what I do moving forward. If I am the one that is responsible for me, I don't have to look to anybody else to do anything. My mom can continue being BPD or displaying traits of BPD, right? That's okay. That's her. Do I love it? No, not at all. It's pretty damn inconvenient, but also I can use it to my advantage. I can use it to grow me, and I'm going to use it to grow me by setting my own boundaries going from here forward. I don't really know what those are going to be yet, but I do know that I'm going to use it to my advantage. And that's what I'm suggesting for you guys too. That, understanding why the alienation happened to begin with, like, where were you? Because a lot of times what we do is we sort of blame ourselves, or like, why was I so stupid? Why did I fucking fall for this? Like, how come I didn't know sooner? Why didn't I just see the signs? Why didn't I acknowledge? Why didn't I leave? Why didn't I blah, 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 blah? All of that bullshit, right? And when you're given the power to, like, when you give yourself, empower yourself by saying, wait a second, I wouldn't have just been stupid because I'm inherently stupid, right? I didn't make these choices or not make these choices because I'm lazy or because I'm somehow flawed, on the inside. I made these choices possibly because of my own upbringing and the role that it was necessary for me to play as a child. And now I can stop that. I don't have to continue on fawning with anybody. I am in control of my life today. And I don't need to pick people in my life that it would be necessary for me to fawn, for me to fall in line for, or numb around, or put on some sort of armor, some sort of protection in order to shield me from their behavior. I don't have to do that anymore now. The more I get to know the reasons why I did what I did, chose the things that I chose, then the more compassion I can have for myself. And the more now I'm like, okay, it's not that I'm bad or not worthy of anything better. And now I know why I did it, because I thought that I had to back then. In fact, I did have to back then. I was a child. Now I'm an adult. I don't have to continue this behavior anymore. And so it really can be very freeing for you. This weekend, although it was suck, it was so necessary and very enlightening, validating, sad, very sad, but also validating, and gave me a feeling of support. Like I feel like I'm able to support myself more with the information and with the acknowledgement of what is actually, I believe is actually happening, not in blame, right? It's not she's bad, I'm good, or she's responsible for my misery. No, that's not going to do anybody any good. For me, she's been through trauma. I know what her family life was like, and it was also not consistent and not stable, right? And so it would make sense that she developed her own map of the world. It's manifested in the way that she shows up, and she doesn't even know it. She knows she's miserable. I know that. So I didn't even get to a couple of the stories that I thought that you guys might be able to identify with, as far as like the commonality, like what it might have looked like for you if you grew up in a household with a BPD or BPD adjacent mom or parent, I should say. I keep saying mom because all the research points to it's moms. It's 75% more women are diagnosed with borderline. That doesn't mean that that's the actual number, but that's really like, I think last study was done in 2022, 75% were women. And so it has been like tagged or deemed more of like a women's personality disorder. But I don't think that that's really even scratching the surface. And it says only 1.6% of people are diagnosed BPD, but I think it's got to be more. Most people aren't diagnosed because BPD and NPD are personality disorders. Nobody wants to admit the things that they're actually thinking, not if you have the disorder. So it's very difficult to diagnose if you're not owning up to what's going on. You know what I'm saying? That's the pisser about personality disorders, is that they're only diagnosable as much as somebody's willing to own up. So I didn't really get into the examples of what it might look like for you, or what it might have looked like for you growing up. You can do that Google research if you want to, but also in the private Facebook group this Friday, I'm going to be sharing 2 or 3 different examples of what it looked like for me growing up. Again, not there to bash or to like tell war stories by any means, but I'd like to share with you my insights on how it showed up, so that maybe it can bring you guys with some clarity, for whoever, might be experiencing this, some clarity for what was going on with you. Maybe you think maybe that's what's going on. I'm not sure. Maybe you don't have words for why things felt so unsafe, unstable, unnerving in your house. Maybe it was a lot of the largely nonverbal, the sighs like my mom, the silent treatment, the quiet disapproval, the silent punishments, the controlling nature of a parent with either one of these personality disorders. So that's that. That's my theory. Maybe you too. It's not misery loves company by any means, but maybe you too grew up with a NPD or BPD adjacent parent. In which case too, I do want to offer that if you have had a parent that was this way, the love was coming for you very inconsistently and unpredictably, right? And so you weren't sure whether you were going to be showered with love and being the good kid, or whether you were going to be scorned and accused, right? It's a very accusatory, persecuting sort of feel to it, I think, at its worst. Critical. Like my mom was very like hypercritical of everything, and she was always questioning the intent of others, even her own children, right? Her husband, my father at the time. Her husband at the time, my father, very, very suspect. She was always concerned that people were doing things for the wrong reasons, paranoid, She is to this day. Now she's paranoid in a different way politically, But anyway, so if you're going through that, you may not have been given the validation and love and consistent support, that you've always yearned for. And so it would make sense that in relationships you got with somebody that also wasn't truly present for you. With borderline, their fear is that they're going to be abandoned. And so oddly enough, because thoughts create our results, if they're thinking they're going to be abandoned, they end up creating the reality that they are abandoned for like the true reality and the reality in their brain that they're living. They shut the whole world out from them because of the way that they behave in fear of being abandoned. And where NPD is fearful of being embarrassed or being exposed, being not good enough, right? Never measuring up. Now, I will say that we all have those fears too. So it doesn't mean that just because your parents were BPD or NPD that you are. And even if you are, or if you display some of these traits, it's okay. I need to say that. I wish I would have said this in the beginning. If you have BPD, NPD, it's only when we're untreated or not acknowledged, right? Any sickness that we have, I don't care if we're talking about diabetes, if we're talking about narcissistic personality disorder, it's only when it's untreated that it's a problem, that it really starts to affect yourself and the people around you in a terrible way. When you're open to treatment and you're taking the steps to help yourself and therefore help your relationships and your children and whatever, then it's okay. There's nothing to be shamed about here. All of what I'm talking about, even with my mom, she's not bad because she displays BPD traits. She's not bad. She's just untreated, So having compassion is huge. For yourself, if you might be going through it, or because of going through it, being present for somebody else's untreated sickness, right? And the last thing I want to say is, if you identify with any of what I have just given you, it's just information that you can have. What I encourage you to do is to not wallow in your past and look and blame from your past, but instead use this to help yourself moving forward. If you're going to spend time looking back into your past, spend an equal amount of time looking into today and your future. Okay? So that you're not stuck sitting in your past and trying to explain your past to yourself, because that's not going to help you at all. I mean, it's not going to help you in the long run get to where you're going, because now we're just reliving memories, right? That's definitely going to work against you. So you have to make a commitment to yourself to balance any time that you spend back looking for answers in also counteracting that and spending time in today and your future. Okay? I'll revisit more of this in upcoming episodes. This is not the last you will hear about BPD. But yeah, anyway. All right, y'all. Take care.
Thanks so much for listening today. If you like what you're hearing and you'd like to hear more, please make sure to click subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Also, for bite-sized clips and tips, be sure to find me on TikTok or Instagram. See you next week.